Good evening, I'm Roger, and this is NFL Trending, your number one stop for the biggest stories shaping the NFL world. Tonight's focus is a headline that's turning heads. Shedeur Sanders seems to want to play the Detroit Lions. The topic may sound surprising at first, but when you break it down, it reflects not only Shedeur's growing confidence as an NFL prospect, but also the Lions' meteoric rise as one of the most intriguing franchises in the league. So let's unpack what this really means, how it started, and what it could mean for both sides. Shedeur Sanders, the son of NFL Hall of Famer Deion Sanders and current quarterback for the Colorado Buffaloes, has been one of the most talked about names in football. His performances in college have put him on the radar as a potential future NFL star. But it's not just his playmaking ability that's making headlines. It's also his personality, confidence, and willingness to speak his mind. Recently, speculation began swirling after Sanders made comments hinting that he'd love to face off against or even suit up with the Detroit Lions. The statement, while not an outright declaration, was enough to send fans and analysts into overdrive. The Lions, once considered a rebuilding team, have suddenly become a destination franchise, something that would have sounded almost impossible just a few years ago. Why the Lions? That's the million-dollar question. To understand, you need to look at the Lions' trajectory. Under head coach Dan Campbell, Detroit has transformed into a gritty, determined, and respected football team. Their style of play has captured the hearts of fans, not only in Detroit, but across the NFL. The Lions are no longer the team opponents circle as an easy win. Instead, they're fighting to be NFC contenders, and their culture has made them one of the most attractive landing spots for young stars. For Shedeur Sanders, aligning himself with a team like Detroit makes sense on multiple levels. First, there's the fit. The Lions have built their identity around toughness, resilience, and an underdog mentality. Those qualities resonate with Shedeur, who has carved out his own path despite the constant comparisons to his legendary father. Shedeur is eager to prove he's not just Deion's son. He's Shedeur, a quarterback ready to take on the NFL in his own way. Second, there's the timing. Jared Goff has revived his career with Detroit, but the Lions are still in search of a long-term answer at quarterback. Goff has played well enough to keep the Lions competitive, but there's always the question of how far he can take them. Could Shedeur Sanders be the future face of the franchise? If the Lions were to land him in the NFL draft, the storylines would write themselves. And then, of course, there's the cultural element. Detroit loves gritty, hard-working players. Sanders brings not only talent, but also personality and charisma. Imagine the excitement in the Motor City if they were to land one of the most hyped prospects in football. It would be a complete cultural fit, and Shedeur's star power could elevate the Lions to a national spotlight they haven't consistently had in decades. Now, let's address the elephant in the room. Did Shedeur actually say he wants to play for the Lions, or is this more about wanting to play against them? The nuance matters. Some interpret his comments as admiration for Detroit's rise, while others believe he's subtly sending a message to the league about where he sees himself fitting best. Either way, the buzz is real, and both fans and analysts are weighing in. From a business perspective, this storyline makes perfect sense. The NFL thrives on narratives, and Shedeur Sanders brings one of the richest in years. Not only is he the son of a Hall of Famer, but he's also playing under his father's guidance at Colorado, making his journey a constant topic of discussion. If he were to join the Lions, the storylines would be endless. Shedeur stepping into a historic but often overlooked franchise, trying to lead them to glory while creating his own identity. Critics, however, warn against reading too much into these comments. Some argue that Sanders should focus on finishing strong at the college level before talking about NFL destinations. Others suggest that his confidence may come across as arrogance, which could rub some teams the wrong way. But supporters counter that this is exactly what the league needs: a confident young quarterback who isn't afraid to dream big and say what's on his mind. It's worth noting that Shedeur Sanders isn't draft eligible until he declares, and there's still plenty of time before we know where he'll land. The draft process is unpredictable. Teams rise and fall, draft orders shift, and front offices make surprising decisions. But the fact that Sanders is already being linked with specific franchises speaks volumes about his brand power and the interest surrounding him. The Detroit Lions, meanwhile, are in a fascinating position. Their resurgence has turned them into a legitimate playoff contender. Jared Goff's play has been solid, but there's no denying that if a young, dynamic quarterback like Shedeur were available to them, the conversation would get very interesting. Would the Lions pull the trigger on drafting him? Or would they stick with Goff and continue to build around their current roster? For Lions fans, the mere idea of Shedeur Sanders in Honolulu blue is enough to spark excitement. The franchise has long been hungry for star power at the quarterback position. Matthew Stafford brought stability for over a decade, but now that he's gone, the Lions have been searching for the next face of the franchise. Could Shedeur be that guy? If nothing else, his comments have ignited a conversation that may last all season long. Shedeur himself has been adamant about one thing: he wants to create his own legacy. While his father, Deion Sanders, is one of the greatest athletes to ever play the game, Shedeur's goal is to prove himself on the field, not rely on his father's reputation. That determination has made him one of the most polarizing but fascinating figures in football. And when you add the Detroit Lions into the mix, the intrigue only grows. The Lions represent redemption, resilience, and rebirth. Shedeur Sanders represents confidence, talent, and future potential. Together, it's a storyline tailor-made for NFL headlines. At the end of the day, whether Sanders actually ends up in Detroit or not, his comments reflect a larger truth. Young stars are paying attention to what the Lions are building. That in itself is remarkable. For decades, Detroit was seen as a place careers went to die. Now, it's being mentioned as a destination, and that shift alone speaks volumes about how far the franchise has come. So while we may not know if Shedeur Sanders will ever put on a Lions jersey, the fact that we're even having this discussion shows how powerful both his brand and Detroit's rise have become. The story may just be starting, but it's one worth following closely. I'm Roger, and this has been NFL Trending. Stick with us for more breaking news, hot takes, and everything you need to know from across the NFL. Until next time, keep watching, keep debating, and keep trending with the NFL. YouTube description: Shedeur Sanders has sparked buzz after hinting he wants to play against, or even with, the Detroit Lions. Could the Lions, one of the NFL's fastest rising teams, be the perfect fit for Deion Sanders' son?